A Silent Voice. This is the one I'm most excited to work on over the next year. Has anyone here heard of it? Yeah, so a lot of people. This is about a girl who can't hear, and she enters the class of a boy who's kind of, a rough kid who he and his friends go on thrill-seeking adventures. He's also a bully, and he's terribly cruel to this girl because she's the first non-hearing person he's ever met, and ends up driving her to transfer out of the school. He ends up getting ostracized for that, and the story picks up again years later when they meet again, and he starts down the road of kind of making up for what he did years earlier. It's a really sweet, sensitive story, incredibly moving, powerful, just, I can't say enough good things about it. So if you're into, that kind of emotional stuff,
if you're not dead inside,
which I happen to be, then you'll definitely want to pick this one up. There's also an anime movie in pre-production, which they announced recently. So I think this is going to make a good movie. I'm glad they went with a movie for this. Now we've come to what becomes a little tradition. Attack on Titan. Thanks to everyone's support, we have over 1.5 million copies in print in English, and Volume 1 has now spent 81 weeks as New York Times bestseller. So we do this little check-in at each one of our panels because it's fun. And, and as a lead into talking about our Attack on Titan books, like Before the Fall, which actually just won GEM Award from comic book shops as the manga trade paperback of 2014. So thanks very much to comic shops for that. This is a darker spin-off of Attack on Titan. I know, how could it possibly be darker than Attack on Titan? But if you look at the art, the gore goes into a lot more detail, and it's fascinating. I was reading one of the recent chapters, and I thought, I don't think I've ever seen a Titan wiping blood off its teeth before. But that's something that happens in this. I mean, stuff like that. So if you're into that kind of thing, which you probably are if you read Attack on Titan, definitely give this one a chance. Each volume also has 4 color pages in it. Attack on Titan Junior High is another spin-off we're currently publishing. This is a total parody alternate universe book where all the characters are junior high school students with the Titans. The Titans are also junior high school students. And in the beginning of the series, you don't really see what's so bad about the Titans. They're just kind of other people, who go to the school. So Aaron saying he hates them all the time kind of makes him sound like a huge dick. And all the characters kind of get twisted up to 11, and Sasha is even hungrier, Hanj is even weirder, Levi is even meaner. So it's a lot of fun, and we had a lot of fun with the translation as well. Kodansha gave us a lot of leeway to kind of put some in-jokes for the American Attack on Titan fandom in there too, so this is one that if you're into Attack on Titan, you'll probably enjoy. I already talked about the Colossal Edition, so I'll just skip over that. The Attack on Titan Guidebook, this is something we published last year. This is a 344-page guide that includes an interview with Hajime Isayama himself, lots of concept art for both the manga and the anime, including some in color, and an interview with Isayama's editor as well, which is kind of unique. You don't really get to hear from the editors of manga very often, and so you get a real look inside what creating Attack on Titan was like, because, I mean, this was his debut work. He was a total unknown when he was first drawing it, and the magazine was brand new too. So both of these guys, the editor and the artist, were kind of just rising through the ranks. And Isayama talks about having to rent an apartment to put his assistants in, and if the series didn't end up taking off, he'd be stuck with this lease that he couldn't possibly pay, and all this stuff that we never think about what it's like to be a manga artist in Japan. So that's a fun read. There's also a lot of original art in it, including the original draft version of Chapter 1, which was never completed. He went back and totally redrew it for what actually appeared in the magazine. There's one line in this draft version. It's so different that there's actually one line that the editor had to strike out because it would be a spoiler that hasn't even been revealed yet. So it's an interesting thing to look at. The Heroic Legend of Arslan. This is one that that we've been publishing for 6 months, roughly.
Sometime last year.
Yeah. And it just recently had an anime announced from Studio Pierrot. We're looking forward to that a lot. This is from the creator of Full Metal Alchemist, so if you're into that, definitely encourage you to pick it up. We have John was nice enough to put some of our books up here, so there's the first volume for you right there. Do you want to talk about My Little Monster a little bit?
My Little Monster, for those who haven't read it, is about it's an odd couple story. You know, you've got kind of a thug and a super straight edge nerd that somehow find each other and decide that they love each other, or don't, or do, or don't. You know, you have two personalities on polar opposites trying somehow to come together because they, for whatever reason, they feel things. They have all the feels when they get together. So it's actually really funny. It's a little weird, but you get to see kind of a lot of the odd personality tropes and types that are common in Japan, which is kind of interesting to see as well. It might seem a little bit hard to imagine opposites of that level attracting, but I would say that Robiko kind of seems to make it work. Maybe it's because she, as she once said, doesn't really care that much about her characters. She can distance herself and make them do all kinds of things, but I think that works out for the best for the audience.
Yeah, I know how that is. I'm a Game of Thrones fan, so. Like, not at that level, I'm assuming. But
no, nobody dies yet.
Say I Love You is one that we started publishing pretty much at the same time as My Little Monster. It's a bit of a more dramatic romance manga. It's been doing very well too. It's very good treatment of a girl who's never even thought about dating or having good friends even, who goes into high school and then gets connected with this very popular boy, and it's about how they kind of figure each other out psychologically and how their relationship progresses physically too. It's unique in that it's very frank in its depiction of the issues that actual teenagers deal with when they have their first relationship, their first serious relationship. So this has been a great one to work on, and volume 6 is coming out next month. I actually had I brought a couple copies to give away to people who ask questions. I didn't bring any books that are already out. I only brought early stuff. So if you want stuff that's out, you have to buy it from this fine man here in the back. But did bring a couple to give away of early stuff.
Seven Deadly Sins, or Nanatsu no Taizai, as it's called in Japan, is a really fun action-adventure story set in like kind of an Arthurian fantasy land called Britannia. It is incredibly violent, but in a fun way. It's good-natured. I mean, somebody might lose an arm or a torso, but you never feel that grossed out or bad about it, because it's got just a really nice, like, fun and light tone to it. It's about a princess of the kingdom, Elizabeth, who goes searching for these wanted criminals, these 7 extremely wanted criminals known as the Deadly Sins. And it's a little unclear what they did to become so wanted, although that does get explained. But she goes searching for them because she gets the feeling that there's some sort of conspiracy afoot that will end to the destruction of the kingdom. And she finds the very first sin, who happens to be the captain of the sins, and he's a little bit of a pervert, but it's a shonen manga, so they always are. He's, looks like a child, but he's incredibly powerful. And they begin on a long journey to find the other sins and go about dealing with the holy knights, who are, by all intents and purposes, as far as we know, the bad guys. But it's just a lot of fun. Again, really wonderful, but fun violence. And if you haven't looked at it, you should definitely go ahead and check it out.
And a lot of it's really Toriyama-esque.
Very similar-ish.
Yeah. This one's you too.
Yes. UQ Holder, for any Negima or Akamatsu fans, is sort of a continuation of Negima. There's a pretty long time jump between where Negima ends and UQ Holder begins. it's about basically a gang of immortals. The gang is called UQ Holder, and they're all immortal in one way or another, and they have kind of a bit of an unknown agenda, although it seems that they're sort of dedicated towards doing good things. But it's a little bit unclear. It's a little bit unclear what happened after Negima, you know, when they had the plan to build the tower up to space. And some of the most fascinating parts are actually when they go and kind of hint at what happened with Negi and with Fate. But it's ongoing, and if you still have questions about what happened after Negima, it's a great place to pick up. This is also fantastically violent. I mean, limbs go flying everywhere, and people get stabbed. I mean, it's pretty gory in places. But it's also, again, the main characters, Tota, who's very enthusiastic about life and everything, and that just kind of carries forward throughout the series. And again, if you're at all a Negi fan, you should definitely check this out.
And I'll just talk very briefly about Fairy Tail. You all already know what Fairy Tail is, but we just finished our big acceleration program to finally catch up with the Japanese release. We're now as close as we're going to get, so our books are coming out pretty much as soon as we can put them out after they're out in Japan, which is a big step from being like 16, 17 volumes behind 2 years ago. So that's been a great ride, and I brought a couple of volume 46, which is also out next month, to give away to people who ask questions. Alrighty. I have to talk about Vinland Saga. You should read Vinland Saga. It's amazing. Read Vinland Saga. If you're not reading Vinland Saga, you should really read Vinland Saga. I was going to take this slide out because, I mean, we haven't published a volume in a few months, but read Vinland Saga. Okay, that's all I had. So, thanks very much.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. And we'll give you guys a chance to ask questions if you have any questions. And people who ask questions can come up and get stuff. I have some Aaron keychains here that you can hang your keys on or whatever. He's got a little. So, and of course, early copies of Say I Love You 6, Fairy Tail 46, and Manga Dogs 3, and Tsubasa Omnibus 3 as well. So that's a big honker. I'll get those out in a second. But.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Wondering about this old Del Rey title, Yozakura Quartet. You guys think about it?
Question was asking about an old Del Rey title, Yozakura Quartet. This is my opportunity to explain that Del Rey manga is dead and in the ground, buried. Stop sending letters to Del Rey manga because I'm tired of getting them.
They send them. They go up to like the 16th floor, and then they come down to his office like 4 weeks later.
Everybody up there remembers
Yeah.
me and just send it forward. But anyways, there is currently and very likely will not be any plan to resurrect the quartet.
We've pretty much rescued all the Del Rey titles that we intended on rescuing for now. The tough thing about rescuing Del Rey titles is that, or any title really, any title rescue, including Tokyo Pop or anything else, is that you have to go back to the beginning. You've got to license the whole series, you know, because the first volume is the one that sells the best. And if if the first 4 volumes are already out with used copies or new copies available for $1 on the secondary market, there isn't much incentive to go back and pick up the series, unfortunately. That's the situation we're looking at with a lot of these series.
A lot of these things were looked at, and the decisions are made on a business kind of decision. Like if Yozakura Quartet was performing like Attack on Titan, you bet we would have brought it back in a heartbeat, but not so much. So.